What is going on, gunfighters? Let's have a talk about ammunition and ballistics. What matters and what doesn't for most people most of the time. That's the topic du jour. Welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, ballistics, use of force, hunting, all manner of gun-related topics the right way, with Almighty God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world, first-hand experience. I am blessed to serve you as host, and this is why you should care about anything I have to say. It's not because I have a microphone. That's why I put in the bio. So if you haven't heard it before, have a listen, and we'll get into the main topic. I'll roll into a quick, abbreviated bio, and then into the main topic. First and foremost, I am a Christian. I don't apologize for that. God is number one in my life. I grew up hunting and fishing in the backwoods of the southeastern United States at a very early age. Some of my earliest memories are with firearms. I joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. By God's grace, He got me through that safely. After that, I served as an instructor. An urban warfare instructor and a desert warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps. I also served with the LAPD, both full-time as a sworn police officer and in some more specialized assignments, as well as serving in the U.S. Army, full-time and part-time National Guard. I've been a FBI firearms instructor, still am an FBI firearms instructor, have been for a lot of years. Also NRA certified and some other three-letter government agency certified. I have been in the past a private contractor for the federal government, advanced weapons instructor, and am currently a private security contractor working in conjunction with several three-letter government agencies. I've been the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area. By God's grace, He got me through all that in one piece, not because I'm better, but because He chose to have grace and mercy on me. I've been a professional hunter and guide. Professionally hunted things like buffalo and elk. Not many people today can say they've done that, but I'm blessed to be able to say that I have. I've hunted everything from white-tailed deer on the East Coast to mule deer on the West Coast to gray squirrel on the East Coast to prairie dog on the West Coast and elk and bear and wolf and slain all manner of beast. A state rifle and pistol champion a few times over in a few different disciplines. Now those experiences, it's not because I'm bigger or badder, certainly not bigger. In fact, I met one of the patrons in real life and he said something to the effect of, "I thought you'd be bigger." Reminded me of that William Wallace movie where he's like, "Oh yeah, if William Wallace were here, he'd shoot lightning bolts out of his rear end." Well, I'm not William Wallace, but I am the person that did all those things in the bio. But not because I'm bigger or badder. I don't think that I survived when many other young, good men did not. I give all the glory and all the credit to God. All the talents and experiences that He's given me and the things that He's let me live through. I hope to use them to glorify God and to help you today. So if I boast in anything, it's not in my strength. It's in that God had mercy on me and saved me because He had a purpose for me. And hopefully I can use those talent, skills, and abilities to serve you today. Ammunition and ballistics. What matters and what doesn't? What's really important and what is hype? What is marketing jargon? I wouldn't even say disinformation. Just information that has no bearing on your situation. And what actually matters? Now, obviously, this isn't it depends, but as I alluded to in the preamble, for most people, most of the time. The first one is going to sound rather elementary, my dear Watson, and that is point of aim, point of impact. And you might think, well, duh. Well, I would think that too if I hadn't seen it so much. I recently saw it in a tactical games competition that I went to, and one of the guys who had a lot of money in his kit and a lot of stuff going on, like really, really Guccified weapon, rifle, and he was missing. And it was what may be an excuse, but if we take what his statement at face value, this wasn't this guy's first rodeo, so let's take him at face value and assume that this is the real reason he was missing his target. And we're talking about a steel plate at 85 yards. And he said he practiced and sighted in, was practicing with steel ammo, and now he was shooting brass ammo for the match. Okay, that's not how that works. It may just by happenstance shoot in the same place. But why would you expect two different kinds of ammunition to shoot in the same place unless they were specifically designed to do so? Right? Just because let's take 223. Let's say they're both 55 grain or both 62 grain. There's no guarantee they're going to shoot the same place. Different primers, different powder, different brass, different ogive, different burn rates, different bullet profiles, and sometimes many of these in combination. They're not going to shoot in the same place. Let alone if you're like, I'm going to practice with my cheap 55 grain Winchester white box, but I'm going to load it up for the alpacalypse for when the zombie chipmunks descend upon us at peak oil. I got my 77 grain Mark 262 OTM match. I'm going to be, drilling zombies between the eyes. That's not how that works because it's not going to shoot where you're aiming. Again, unless it says random happenstance. That's not how that works. You have to zero your rifle point of aim, point of impact for what you're actually shooting. It's not going to hit in the same place just because you really, really want it to. That's not how that works. That is of peak importance. That is really important. All the other stuff doesn't really matter. Your BC doesn't matter. Your sectional density don't matter. Your height over bore doesn't matter. Your ballistics calculator, wind deflection doesn't matter if you can't hit your target point blank to begin with. If your gun's not shooting where you're aiming, that's a problem. That's a big one. And you might think that, well, of course, but I see this a lot, and I see it especially with handguns and carry ammo. If you're a civilian in America, likely, if you get in a defensive gunfighting encounter, it's probably going to be with your handgun. That's why I switched from precision rifle kind of competition more towards practical pistol competitions, because I figured that if I got into a life-altering situation, whether in law enforcement, my day-to-day job, or as a civilian, it's probably going to be with a handgun. And you see this a lot, sadly, with a handgun. Guy goes out, I'm not picking on Winchester white box, it's just kind of a default practice ammunition. Actually, for this one, let's say Remington, green and white box, off the shelf, Remington ammunition, 9mm 115 grain ball. There's nothing wrong with that ammunition. He carries that, he practices with that, and then he loads up with his 135 grain plus P FBI load critical duty mega destroyer ammo. And that's a good load, that 135 grain Hornady plus P. It's a good load. But why do you think that's going to shoot anywhere in the general vicinity of your 115 grain Remington ball ammunition? It's because you really, really want it to? Again, that's not how that works. So if you're practicing certain skills, if you're practicing hip shooting at 3 yards, then yeah, it probably doesn't matter. But if you're actually going to carry that to trust your life with it, you probably should zero your dot, zero your iron sights, or make sure and pick a load that shoots where your iron sights are, point of aim, point of impact, for the load you plan to trust your life and other people's lives to. It doesn't matter that it's the best load. It doesn't matter if it has the best terminal performance, if you can't hit the target you're shooting at. If it doesn't hit where you're aiming, that's a problem. That's a big one. Point of aim, point of impact, that matters. Let's talk about one that doesn't matter. And this is going to get a bunch of people all riled up because people have been lied to by big ammo to be told that this is really going to make a difference on your hunt, on your shooting. Ballistics coefficient. Now, ballistics coefficient, it's not disinformation. It is a thing. To put it in layman's terms, the ability of an object, or a bullet in this case, to fly through the air. How efficiently does it fly through the air? G1, G7. Doesn't matter. For most people, most of the time. Doesn't matter. Period. For most people, most of the time. Unless you get into the ridiculous, like shooting a wad cutter. But if you're talking about a modern Spitzer bullet, I don't even care if it's boat-tailed or not. As long as it's got a semi-pointed profile, let's say out of a 308, if you're shooting this BC versus that BC, inside of 300 yards, which is where most people shoot, even a lot of ranges don't go out past that, which is where the vast majority of hunting is and should be taking place, inside of 300 yards, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Pick the one that shoots well out of your gun, that has a terminal performance that you want, and that you can affordably practice with, that shoots point of aim, point of impact. That matters way more than BC. BC, for most people, most of the time, is like a good to know. Put it in the good to know category. Like the speed of light is 186,000 miles per second. If that's true. Good to know doesn't really come in very useful in my day-to-day life. That's how you should kind of view BC for most people most of the time. Now, if those haven't ruffled your feathers, this one may. Practical accuracy. Right? Practical accuracy. And accuracy is important, right? As far as you interfacing with that rifle and hitting your target, that's obviously important. But we've gotten, and this is a great thing, we've gotten so accurate with rifles nowadays, especially. The difference is academic. Accuracy is important, but it's not the be-all, end-all. Let me give you an example. You're trying to pick a load. I'll give you two examples. First one will be for hunting. You're trying to pick a 308 load for, hunting mule deer. You try a couple of different loads. One load shoots sub-MOA. It shoots .90 all day long. Not even fudging the numbers. Right? Not even throwing out your worst shot and like picking the best group out of 9 groups. I'm talking it legitimately shoots sub-MOA. 0.9 inches. 3-shot group with this ammo. That ammo is, let's say, don't even go to the extreme. It's a target bullet. It's not, I won't even say full metal jacket. It's a target bullet. 168 grain target bullet. You have another ammunition that shoots 1.1 inches. So it's greater than MOA. Oh, the horror. But it's really good at terminal performance. It's, let's say, gold standard nozzler partition. You got a nozzler partition that's 180 grain that shoots 1.1 MOA. It's greater than MOA. How could we ever hunt with that? The deer are just going to laugh at us and trot on down the hill. The difference in the field, if you get off the bench between 0.9 MOA and 1.1 MOA, sub-MOA versus a little bit over MOA, is completely academic. What's not going to be academic is how well that bullet performs on that target. Now, could you get perfect shot where it doesn't really matter? Either one of those bullets would do fine, yeah. But you hunt enough deer, you'll know that terminal performance can be a really important factor. Much more important than whether it shoots 0.9 MOA or 1.1 MOA. Is accuracy important? Yes. As far as accuracy, you being able to hit the target that you're trying to hit in an acceptable zone. As far as whether one ammo shoots 0.9 or 1.1, if you're shooting at a living thing, the terminal performance is more germane to you than the difference in group size. Same thing with let's say a fighting rifle. Let's say you want to shoot 55 grain in your AR and you've got a 55 grain load that shoots lights out. It shoots half MOA. Legitimately, not even cherry picking groups. Like it shoots half MOA. It's a full metal jacket. Or you have one that shoots 1 MOA. Double the size. Double. Half the accuracy. But let's say it's a really good terminal performer. Spear Gold Dot 55 grain or Federal True, Federal Tactical Rifle Urban. Great terminal performance. That's my defensive carbine or my duty carbine. I'm taking the one with the greater terminal performance. 1 MOA is plenty good enough for most people most of the time, especially in a fighting rifle. So accuracy absolutely is important, but this difference in my group has to be the absolute smallest it can be at the cost of all else, not so much. Likewise, if you gave me 2 fighting carbines and one shot a half MOA and one shot 1 MOA and one weighed 9 pounds and one weighed 7.5 pounds, I would take the less accurate one that weighed 7.5 pounds because I know in the field it's far more likely that I'm going to have that gun aimed in or holding that gun on a perimeter for hours, and I'm going to be more accurate whether or not that gun shoots half or one MOA with a lighter weight rifle. I'm going to be more effective. If I have to run to cover, to gunfire, if I have to run into the fight, firepower versus mobility is a thing, and I'll take the lighter, handier rifle with a little bit worse MOA. You know, MOA groups, shooting sub-MOA groups is not the end-all, be-all. So take a deep breath. There is more to life than MOA and sub-MOA. The next two are tangential. They're both related into how to view the power of a cartridge. And it's not that they're not true or they're not real, but they're not the end-all, be-all. And those are going to be foot-pounds and Taylor knockout formula. Now, let's start with Taylor knockout formula because it's the easy one to pick on. A lot of big, heavy, slow bullet guys will say, Taylor knockout formula, it's the gold standard. Well, even Taylor himself, I believe, that formula was derived at head shooting elephants and literally knocking them out. That's why it's called the Taylor knockout formula. Are you head shooting elephants? Does it apply to you? Now, it still is not horrible, right? It's a good metric, especially if you land on the heavy, slow bullet freight train that says the heavy, slow bullet at pedestrian velocities is better than a super high velocity ultralight bullet. The Elmer Keith versus Jack O'Connor duel that's been going on for a long time. I'm not saying that it's not valid. I'm saying it's not the end-all, be-all. You could have two loads that score exactly the same on Taylor knockout, and one could be a horrible terminal performer. So you got to sprinkle in there some street cred, right? What was the bullet designed for, and what are you trying to do? If you're trying to punch through a buffalo, probably a hard cast semi-wad cutter. It might have the same terminal performance. If you're shooting a white-tailed deer with a 45-70, you probably don't want a hard cast semi-wad cutter unless you just want to shoot it with that. You probably want, because you got plenty of penetration, you probably want some more expansion. Even though both loads may score exactly the same on the Taylor knockout, that doesn't mean that they're both equally a good choice for the thing that you're hunting. Likewise, foot-pounds. Force equals mass times velocity squared. So velocity kind of gives you good numbers on foot-pounds. And foot-pounds are absolutely a thing. That's a real scientific thing. It's repeatable. It's science. It's not like the COVID vaccine. It's actual science, like foot-pounds of energy. But again, that doesn't mean that it's the end-all, be-all. You could have a 308 150 grain, just round vanilla ballpark numbers. 308 150 grain at 2,800 feet a second is going to score way better than a 30-30 150 grain at 2,300 feet a second. It just is. It's going to score way better. However, they'll have the same numbers if that 308 is a full metal jacket and the 30-30 is a good soft lead round nose bullet known for taking game. Even though it may have less impressive numbers, I almost guarantee that 30-30 is going to be way better at harvesting game or for defensive use. Yes, people do use 30-30 defensively. It'd be better in either one of those than a full metal jacket 308. Get mad if you want, emote if you want, but that's just the reality. Foot-pounds are a good metric. It's a good metric in that if I want to compare the power of, let's say, similar loads, a 243 to a 308, I can look at the foot-pounds. If they're both shooting, let's say, a similar bullet, Barn TTSX, and I'm trying to decide the power, like how much power difference is there between a 243 and a 6 Creedmoor? Probably none, or probably very little. How much power difference is there between a 243 and a 30-06? Can be quite a bit. How much power difference is there between a 5.56 and a 7.62 x 51 NATO? Right, there's appreciable things that we can glean from foot-pounds. But foot-pounds, not even that it's not even a real thing or it doesn't matter, but it's not the end-all, be-all. It only is numbers, and numbers are not the end-all, be-all for terminal performance. Like you could have a 308 150 grain full metal jacket, and if they make it, I'm shooting from the hip here, 150 grain Nosler partition, or a Nosler Accubond, or a Federal High Shock, and they could have exactly the same numbers and perform radically different on the intended target. So foot-pounds are good to know. They're more useful than BC, but they're not the end-all, be-all for determining a cartridge and its effectiveness and how well it does or doesn't do. And they could have radically different characteristics, right? If you looked at a super, super hot loaded 4570, like screaming, single shot, Remington #1, loaded to the max, as hot as you could load a 4570, and a very vanilla, plain, off-the-shelf Walmart 30-06 load. They're going to be pretty similar in foot-pounds. They're going to do they'll both kill a deer in different ways. Well, the same way they're going to stop it from breathing, heart beating, or whatever. But the bullet performance is going to be radically different, even if they have almost identical foot-pound numbers. Again, foot-pounds are a kind of a good thing to look at, but they're not the only thing to look at. So I would encourage you not to make your choice alone on foot-pounds. If you do that, you're going to end up always running some crazy Magnum, thinking you should be hunting deer with a 300 Winchester Magnum or something. So foot-pounds are not the only end-all, be-all on that. Anyway, guys, if you like this kind of idea of what matters and what doesn't, let me know, because I just kind of thought about it, because there's so much marketing hype out there. And again, not that it's not even not true or fake news, just that it generally doesn't apply to you. You put it in the category of kind of good to know, cool to nerd out over, but does it really matter? And a lot of the time, it's no. And some of the things you think don't even matter a great deal. So what actually matters from a life of gunfighting? God has blessed me to have these experiences, and I want to pass it on and serve. So if you like this kind of content, let me know. And if you'd rather me just talk about other things, let me know what you'd like me to talk about. There's a way to interact, at least if you listen on Spotify. If you listen on Spotify, there's a thing where I'm supposed to ask you guys questions, but I flipped the script on that 180 and said, you guys ask me questions. Well, you don't have to ask a question. You could also say, hey, talk more about this or talk more about that. So let me know. If you want to interact more regularly than me just checking that periodically, and you want to support the podcast, consider becoming a patron. Normally I throw out a tactical tip, but I'm going to do something a little bit different on this episode. We do stuff on Patreon all the time. It's kind of our own little tribal thing we do in there. I recently posed a question for the patrons, a poll to think about, and here's the question. This was a post I did on Patreon. Battlefield pickup. You are bugging out on foot after World War III destroyed your home and town. You have your bag and your carry handgun. You find yourself in the midst of Illinois, or Illinois, whatever, you know. The place was recently a battlefield, fighting to control rail lines, canals, highway, waterways, has decimated the area. You happened on what was a recent battlefield. You are in a hurry and limited to one long gun and all the ammunition you can carry. Below are guns that you see. What do you pick? Iron sharpens iron. So which one do you pick, guys? The options were AK-47 or 74, M4 with an ACOG, QBZ-95, for those who don't know, that's the Chinese service arm, the M24, which is a sniper rifle with a 10x scope, a Dragunov with a PSO 4-power optic, Dragunov being the Russian sniper rifle. Anyway, just one of the many things we do on Patreon, just fun little things like that. And if you guys are curious what the winner was, you should become a patron and figure it out. When you become a patron, you not only get access to the stuff being posted then, but all the previous content. And there's a lot of content on there. So if you want to support the show, right, all the buzzwords, American made, small business, veteran owned and operated, right, gluten free, all the buzzwords. You want to support that, you want to be a part of the tribe, consider becoming a patron. There should be a Patreon link in the show notes. Heck, there's even a way you can sign up for free. You won't get all the content, but you'll get quite a bit of the content. If you want to try it out for free. I think if you try it out for free, a lot of the times you'll think, there's a lot of value here. I'd like to see what else is on here. So you can even sign up for free. Anyway, should be a Patreon link in the show notes. With that, your tactical verse of the day, the most important part of the podcast. Whether you become a patron or not, whether you like the podcast or not, this stuff is important. You shall not hate your fellow countrymen in your heart. You may certainly rebuke your neighbor, but you are not to incur sin because of him. You shall not take vengeance nor hold any grudge against the sons of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. That's from Leviticus 19. Have a blessed day.